Hi, this is Bob. Thank you for watching this video. I think you're going to get a lot out of what's coming just in the next 14 minutes. In this 14 minutes, you're going to see a lot of hard work that we put in to help attorneys and high net worth planners to understand the things that they can do that are far above the sale to an idiot or grat work or other things that would do to vastly reduce the estate tax exposure. And when you get through, you're going to have a lot of questions, and we want you to reach out to us so that we can answer those questions. So without any further information, I'm going to let you tune in and listen to the next 14 minutes, and I think you'll find it to be extremely invigorating. It will increase your practice revenue. It's amazing what it does to attorneys that utilize this system. Thank you for watching this.
Okay, so today we're going to talk about how to reduce estate taxes without using gift exemptions. A lot of high net worth people, and even CPAs, estate planning attorneys, and financial advisors, think that once their high net worth client has used up all of their unified tax credits, or gifting credits, that there aren't any other ways to transfer their wealth to the next generation, without incurring estate taxes, which is actually not true. Now, our proprietary Leverage G2 plan accomplishes two things. One, it allows a client to keep their family-owned businesses inside the family for the next generation. And two, it drastically minimizes their estate tax liability. So let's take a look at a case study of one of our clients. This particular client had $10 million in cash and marketable securities. They own two businesses, each business worth $20 million each, so a total of $40 million in business valuation. Their primary residence was worth $5 million, and their vacation home was worth $3.5 million. So their total taxable estate was $58.5 million. Based on their current taxable estate, at a 40% estate tax rate, meant that Generation 2, which was their adult kids, would have a $23.4 million estate tax liability. And by the way, this didn't even take into consideration any growth factors of their estate. Realistically, their businesses, their real estate holdings, and their investments will most likely grow over time. So our Leverage G2 plan saved them $16 million in estate taxes, which was not a bad savings, right? Let's take a look at how we did it. So step one was to establish a BEDIT. And a BEDIT is a beneficiary defective inheritors trust, which is an irrevocable trust that the client can be both the beneficiary of the BEDIT and also allows the client to control the assets inside the BEDIT. These elements, as I'm sure you know, are very unique and are unique to a BEDIT. Now, a couple other things about the BEDIT. It cannot be established by the client or a current or future beneficiary of the BEDIT. Like, for example, the person establishing the BEDIT could be a sibling or a business partner, assuming that neither are beneficiaries of the BEDIT. But the person establishing the BEDIT could not be the client or the children of the client, assuming that they're beneficiaries of the BEDIT. The client will not make gifts to the BEDIT. They would only sell assets to the BEDIT. So in the case of this client, we had them sell $40 million of non-managing member interests of the two businesses to the BEDIT in exchange for a promissory note. The non-managing member interests were discounted 30% down to $28 million. Step two was to have our law firm draft the plan document. Now, if you are an attorney and you prefer to have you and your law firm draft the plan document, that's totally fine. In addition to that, if you would like us to introduce you to the law firm that we typically use to draft our plan documents and you would like them to co-counsel with you, we can make arrangements to make that happen as well. So we're very, very friendly and very easy to do business with if you are, again, an attorney and you represent a law firm that does estate planning. So our Leverage G2 plan has been referred to as a multi-generational loan regime split dollar plan. Now, there's two types of split dollar funding options. One is the loan regime, and the second is the economic benefit regime. Split dollar regulations were updated in 2003 and require the implementation of a life insurance policy to secure the benefits of the regulation. In fact, the former director of the Gift and Estate Tax Division of the IRS is actually a partner at the law firm that drafts our plan documents. In fact, he was the director during 2003 when the regulations were updated. And he informed us that his firm will only use the loan regime in the plan documents, not the economic benefit regime, because the components in our leverage G2 plan are explicitly stated in the loan regime regulations, including the interest rate on the generational loan can be fixed at the long-term applicable federal rate. That's the AFR rate at the time the loan is funded, and it can remain fixed in perpetuity. The interest on that loan can also be accrued and paid at loan maturity, and the maturity of the loan is actually the date of the insured's death. Hence the necessary component of the G2 plan to have the life insurance policy included in the plan to repay the promissory note. And again, I can't emphasize this enough. If you are an estate planning attorney or if you represent an estate planning firm and you're watching this webinar, again, we can bring in the attorney that we typically use to draft our clients' plan documents, and they can assist and co-counsel if you want to be the one to draft your client's plan documents. Okay, step 3 is to establish the Irrevocable Life Insurance Trust, otherwise known as the ILIT. So an ILIT was established outside of G2's taxable estate, and a life insurance policy was placed on G2. Again, G1 is Generation 1, in other words, the client, and G2 is Generation 2, in other words, the client's adult kids. Now, the total cumulative premium contribution was equal to the amount of the assets the G1 sold to the Beat It, in this example, $40 million. Now, this cumulative $40 million of life insurance premium was funded using a third-party lender. This component of funding the life insurance premium is known as premium financing. Now, this policy was designed to be a non-MEC with the explicit intent of 1, remaining in force for the duration of G2's lifetime, 2, potentially using the cash value as a benefit to G2's ILIT to pay for things like trust expenses, for example. 3, to possibly generate a retirement income stream from the cash value to the ILIT to G2. And then 4, generating a death benefit that will eventually pay off the intergenerational loan and possibly leave a death benefit in excess over for the benefit of Generation 3. In other words, G1's grandchildren. Okay, step 4 was to establish an LLC for G1. And once that new LLC was established, the client took the $40 million loan from the bank and used that to capitalize the LLC with the $40 million premium financed funds. And then the LLC then makes a loan to G2's ILIT in exchange for a split dollar note. Now, the split dollar note was discounted 70% due to the terms of the split dollar note, which included a fixed AFR interest rate in perpetuity, accrued interest in perpetuity, and a long maturity date. In other words, the repayment obligations of the note were deferred until the death of G2. So this $40 million intergenerational loan was between G1's LLC and G2's ILIT. And the primary asset of that ILIT was the split dollar note. And then step 5 was to have the client sell the LLC to the Beat It. Now remember, the LLC owns the split dollar note. So now the Beat It owns the LLC, which includes the ownership of that split dollar note repayment obligation. And the sale of the LLC to the Beat It was executed in exchange for a note back to G1, right? So G1 sold the LLC to the Beat It. Now the value of the LLC was formally appraised based on the underlying assets inside the LLC. And in this case, the primary asset of the LLC was the split dollar note. So the LLC was valued at a substantial discount in accordance with the value of the discounted split dollar note, in this case, $12 million. So, in order to validate the discounted intergenerational loans, there does need to be a verifiable plan in place to repay those intergenerational loans. And this is where the life insurance policy comes into play. So, based on the plan document, upon the death of Generation 2, the death benefit would pay out from the policy to Generation 2's ILIT. Now, remember, the BEAT took a note back from Generation 2's ILIT. And so G2's ILIT would repay the split dollar notes to the BEAT. Now, if you remember, there were two split dollar notes. The first note was a $28 million note. We took the present $40 million valuation of the non-managing member interests and discounted them 30%. So the discounted note valuations were $28 million. Now, if you remember, the LLC as an entity was actually sold to the BEAT. So now the BEAT owns the LLC as well as the assets inside the LLC, which include that $28 million split dollar note. The second note that needs to be repaid is the $12 million discounted note, and this was the note due to the premium financing loan of $40 million. Now, that $40 million loan was discounted 70% down to only $12 million. So remember, the loan went from the bank to G1. G1 then capitalized the LLC with those funds, and then that LLC loaned that money to the ILIT. So note number 2 that we see on the screen here represents that $40 million loan from the LLC to the ILIT that was discounted 70%, making the discounted value of that note $12 million. Again, $40 million loan minus a 70% discount equals $12 million as the value of that note. So the combination of the $28 million discounted note plus the $12 million discounted note totals $40 million of discounted notes that the BEAT needs to repay to Generation 1's estate. For more specific information about how we executed this plan, we can put you in touch with the law firm that we use to draft our plan documents. Again, the gentleman that drafts our plan documents is the former director of the Gift and Estate Tax Division of the IRS. So here's what the client's balance sheet looked like before the plan. And by implementing our Leverage G2 plan, here's how it affected their balance sheet and taxable estate. Obviously, they still had the cash and marketable securities valued at $10 million, but in this example, the $40 million sale of the two businesses from the client to the BEAT was discounted 30% to a value of only $28 million. Again, that's the $40 million minus the 30% discount equals a $28 million discounted valuation. The $40 million premium financed bank loan then showed a $40 million liability on the client's balance sheet, reducing the taxable value of his estate by $40 million. Now, the client also sold the LLC to the BEAT. Remember, the LLC held the split dollar note. So that sale of the LLC to the BEAT for a discounted value of $12 million resulted in them taking back a note from the BEAT for that $12 million. Again, that was the $40 million premium financed loan that capitalized the LLC, discounted 70%, equaling a $12 million discounted valuation for that note. The primary residence was still valued at $5 million, and the vacation home was also still valued at $3.5 million. So by implementing our Leverage G2 plan, that reduced the client's taxable estate down to only $18.5 million, down from $58.5 million. Now, this resulted in a total estate tax savings of $16 million. So one of the biggest questions we get asked is, what does case law tell us about this type of intergenerational planning? Well, the two most notable case law examples of this type of planning are the Morissette 2 case and the Levine case. In the Morissette 2 case, the IRS disputed a 77% discount that was appraised, a discount from $30 million down to only $7 million is what Morissette attempted to do. The structure of the Morissette plan was much different than our Leverage G2 plan. In that case, Morissette attempted to set up a permanent life insurance policy inside an ILIT and then simply gift the islet an amount equal to the term life insurance premium, and then have the islet pay that portion of the actual permanent life insurance premium, and then split the remaining cost with the mother's revocable trust, hence the term split dollar. Now, the reason the court ruled against some of which Morissette was trying to do was basically due to the short holding period of the life insurance. Basically, the IRS found emails that uncovered a premeditated plan to surrender the life insurance policies after 4 years, just outside of an audit statute of limitations. This was considered to be an abuse of the life insurance component, simply to get the discounted note repayment validated in the year of valuation, with no true intent of paying the note back. It was determined that Morissette's intent was to discount the estate value, wait for the statute of limitations period to end, and then collapse the plan, surrendering the life insurance policy and making all transactions unauditable from that moment forward, after the statute of limitations. So the court basically adjusted the allowable discount from the $30 million note that they tried to discount down to $7 million, and they only allowed it to be discounted down to $28 million, again, instead of the $7 million, which was basically 4 times more than the $7 million that the Morissette estate assumed that they could discount the note to. And there were several reasons why the IRS disallowed the majority of that discounted note amount. However, our Leverage G2 plan is much different than the strategy that was used in the Morissette 2 case. A more recent case was the Levine case. In this case, the IRS attempted to get the policy cash surrender value included in the client's taxable estate. Now, in this case, the court actually ruled against the IRS in favor of Levine in every single code section violation accusation. Now, according to our counsel, again, this is the former director of the Gift and Estate Tax Division of the IRS, the only area the IRS may attempt to dispute in our G2 plan is the amount of valuation discount. Now, in the Levine case, they use the economic benefit regime as opposed to the loan regime that we use. Yet they were still awarded a 65% discount, which was still pretty darn good. This case proved that generational planning, even when disputed by the IRS, still has great merit. But again, our Leverage G2 plan is even more solid than the Levine case design. So in summary, the case study we reviewed with you on this webinar, by implementing our Leverage G2 plan, this client was able to keep ownership and control of the family business inside the family for the benefit of Generation 2. It also allowed G1 to maintain control over their assets and not use any unified tax credits, in other words, gift exemptions. But the big thing was we were able to save the client $16 million in estate taxes. So if you have clients that want to reduce their estate tax liability without using any of their gift tax exemptions, contact us at the Rushmore Group. In fact, here is Bob Larson's personal contact information. Bob is the founder and CEO of the Rushmore Private Client Group. We look forward to talking to you soon and helping clients reduce their estate tax liability.